Okay, big episode, Nap Trappers, coming at you today. You ready for this, Beck?
Oh my gosh, it's the one that everyone's been waiting for by the sounds of things. So I'm super excited to get into it today.
Early rising.
Early rising.
Babies waking too early in the morning. It's in our DMs, it's in Snooze Social, it's on social media, it's even been in our houses, I'm sure
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yep.
Babies waking too early in the morning. We are going to dive in because there is so much to talk about it, and we're actually going to split this episode into two, because otherwise you'll be listening to us for hours,
Yep.
and we know you've got babies. Ain't nobody got time for that. So we're going to split this into two, and focus today on things like the environmental factors and in particular hunger and how that can play a role. And then next week we will be talking about the body clock aspect of early rising and how to sleep train it out.
Lots of factors that you can put into place immediately to help try and navigate your way through the early rise rather than looking at it from a sleep training perspective. So today's episode will be so that you can tick a lot of boxes and make sure you've done all the dotting of the I's, crossing all the T's type of things.
Because truly, it can be the smallest tweak,
Mm.
and we go from a 4:30, 5:30 a.m. wake to already a 6:30. And this is how you and I work, is that the sleep training aspect really is the last piece of the puzzle, regardless of if the problem is early rising or self-settling or whatever it is. There's so much work to do before we even get there. So let's start with something that families can go and do tonight. Or should I say
Perfect.
tomorrow morning at the crack of dawn when that baby wakes up too early. So I think, just to be clear for everyone listening, what do we consider to be early rising?
So early rising for a lot of families is probably looking at a number on the clock and thinking that's too early to get up. So for many families, anything in the fives, so anything before 6 a.m. is considered an early rise. But you and I both sort of subscribe to more of we are looking for a total number of sleep overnight. So we're looking for the majority of ages, 11 to 12 hours overnight. So it really depends on if your little one is getting less than 11 hours, and then that would be considered an early rise. So for example, if your little one is going to bed at 7 o'clock, then 11 hours will get you to 6 a.m. in the morning, which I think we can both agree that if they're waking sometime after 6, then it's not actually an early rise. It's sort of more of okay, well, let's, push through. Whereas if your little one was going to bed at 7 and then waking at 5:15, that's when we would consider that to be an early rise.
Yeah. And we do sometimes see schedules that suggest a 6 p.m. bed. And while that may work for some, if we're then looking at it from a sleep science perspective, that does get you to 5, which can slip into the 4s even. And it wouldn't technically be early rising in our opinion. It would be your baby's met their quota of overnight sleep, but it's off the back of a really early bedtime. So you and I generally like to keep bedtime somewhere in the 7s. It can come a little bit early, depending on a nap transition or, each family needs something a little bit different. But if we can keep bedtime in the 7s, then yes, that should naturally push something closer to the 6 to 7 a.m. wake. And you and I are always wanting to start the day at around 6:45, 7 a.m. With a nice big feed. So really for us, in that context, we're going to maybe say something like before 6 a.m. we're heading into early rise territory.
Yeah. Okay. So for in the context of our discussion, we're working off the back of a 7 p.m. bedtime, which means little ones are waking somewhere between 6 and 7. So anything between 4 and 6 a.m. is an early rise.
Oh my goodness, 4 a.m. I actually have never had a 4 a.m. wake. I've had something in the 5s and I've sleep trained that out, but never in the 4s for me personally.
No. I mean, and so over the years, you and I have both heard, stories of families that are getting up in the 4s, and that's quite normal. And, we've had 1 or 2 families that have started their day in the 3s. And it's just out of defeat, I think. A lot of families, it's
Yeah.
just sort of, I don't know, I don't know what to do. They don't, no matter what I'm doing, they're not going back off to sleep. We may as well just call it quits and start the day, and then at least I'm feeling like I'm doing something productive. Um, so early rising is a really common theme for most families that we work with, I would imagine.
Let's also talk about the factors that we need to rule out first to ensure that one of these things that are very much within our control as parents and as your sleep consultants, that it's not, in fact, what's causing the early rise. Just on all of that introduction, I think it's fair to say that you and I, Beck, we don't subscribe to the idea that just because they are a baby or a toddler, do babies and toddlers just start their day at 5 a.m.? In fact, I have never, ever finished with a family with anything before like the mid sixes, like
Yep.
6:20 onwards, and then baby's happy to hang out for 15, 20 minutes. But I have never, ever finished with a family with a wake up definitely not in the 4s, but definitely not in the 5s either.
I feel like when we're working on sleep, the last sort of 5% of tidying up our clients, like the sleep solution, so usually into that second week, is like the early rise and sort of fixing that. So sleep is a bit of a process of organization, and you'll get your nights, then your naps, and then, you sort of have to whittle out an early rise just to sort of organize the day. I'm exactly the same. I would not leave a family if we had some sort of early rise situation still happening. It's very rare that there is, but yeah, it's always fixable.
Yep.
One of the things that I really encourage families to consider when we're working on sleep and trying to iron out the early rise is future-proofing yourself. The reason why we do that is I know a lot of families who are starting the day in the 5s, when their little one is, and that just becomes, that is their internal clock. The circadian rhythm is set. They get up at 5, they start their day. It might be fine for the family, when they're little and, total babies and whatnot. But then when they become toddlers and they're getting up in the 5s, it is a really long day at childcare. A really long day. It's exhausting. And then they're crashing out in the, early again. And it becomes a real challenge behavioral wise, as well. So I think that future proofing yourself now while your little ones are young enough for it to be a little bit more seamless can really benefit you long term.
Especially while they're still in their cot, because they can stay contained and safe in those early hours, and you can do the work that needs to be done in those early hours. It's much, much trickier at 5 a.m. with a 3-year-old, like you were saying, that may be in a bed and can come out when sleep pressure is really non-existent at that time. Yeah. So, that is such a good point. This is all about future-proofing because we all love a later sleep in. So let's get started with the environmental factors, because these are the sort of things that parents can listen and go through their checklist on the spot. The common culprits that I see in terms of baby's room set up is, first and foremost, is that it's too cold. And you and I will always start with, what is the baby's room temperature? What is the room temperature at 3 and 4 and 5 a.m.? What are they wearing? What is the TOG rating of their sleeping bag? And I know we will even ask, where are you getting the temperature readout from? Yes. Is it from the monitor? Is it from the thermostat? Where are we getting? Because not all, I find monitors often overreach. So I'm always minusing a degree or so. I want to know the most accurate temperature so we can dress babies accordingly.
Also, where that temperature gauge is. So if it's on a nightstand and it's sort of quite a high up, like the chest of drawers or whatnot, and it's quite high, that's a very different temperature ordinarily to your baby's nice and low in the cot. So it can be, we are splitting hairs. We are absolutely splitting hairs, but it can be. And you know what? Over the years too, I've really noticed that those cardboard temperature readers that you get from like some of the sleeping bags, they come with like a temperature.
Yes. Yep.
Like a thermometer. They are so accurate. They are so accurate, and they are accurate for years and years and years. But like you, I think the monitors that are typically used to gauge the temperature in the bedroom are usually 1 or 2 degrees higher than the actual read in the room as well. So, so yeah, we do a little quick calculation, don't we, when we're here?
Yeah. And look, there is no perfect room temperature for what it's worth. For my children, I usually aim to keep their room somewhere between 20 and 21 degrees Celsius. And as babies, I would usually dress them then in a Bonds Wondersuit, so a long sleeve, long legged onesie, and then a 2.5 to a 3.5 TOG rated sleeping bag, depending on what's in the wash. And then I may add on a singlet. For anyone in America that doesn't know what a singlet is, I'm talking about a short sleeved onesie.
Yeah.
Or in England, a vest.
A vest.
A vest. That added layer on, I think, and I understand why, but a lot of the sleeping bag dressing guidelines are on a chillier side. So when I work one-on-one, I am often adding in a layer or bumping that TOG rating from 1 to 2.5 or even 2.5 to 3.5. And I think for families who are in climates that fluctuate greatly, they go to bed and it's 28 degrees in the room, but in the morning it's 18 at 3 a.m., then something like a merino wool sleeping bag, and there's lots of great brands out there, can work wonders because it has just sort of increased adaptability sometimes compared to some of the more cotton-based sleeping bags. So always wanting to rule out too cold. I am forever adding layers. Cozy baby sleep.
So the main reason we are double checking temperatures and what you're wearing to bed, or what your little one is wearing to bed at that time, is because between 3 and 5 is the coldest part of the night. So we are dressing our little ones at bedtime for the coldest part of the night. So it doesn't necessarily worry us too much what's going on at bedtime. We are always thinking we are future-proofing ourselves by dressing for 4 a.m. So often we'll see little ones become quite restless and hard to resettle around that sort of time frame, and then we will sort of know we need to add extra layers and so forth in there. So if your little one is sort of waking around that 4 or 5 o'clock mark and resistant to going back off to sleep, you want to tick that box in terms of, have I added extra layers? Have I checked the temperature of the room? Is there anything else that I can tweak in order to be super confident that cold is ruled out as a factor for waking?
Yeah, and I think it's also worth mentioning that even in a temperature-controlled room, we all drop a couple of degrees systemically in our bodies at around that time. And I know it all too well from doing nursing night duty shifts. Come 4 a.m., we are all chilled to our bones, wrapped under blankets at the nurse's station, because our bodies are just doing their normal thing. We just happen to be wide awake for it. But I know that feeling of like, oh, I am cold. And then if we look at it in terms of sleep pressure, it is a fragile time of the morning compared to, let's say, 11 p.m. at night. So if your baby is already losing a little bit of sleep pressure, which is only natural, if there is something that is going to cause them to wake, they are going to wake. So we can just easily rule it out by making sure that your baby is warm enough for those early hours of the morning.
Yes, correct.
Next up, is it too bright? And this isn't necessary for every country, but, particularly with daylight savings, although I can never remember which way is brighter in the morning. It's like time travel. Whatever it is, if it's too bright at 5 a.m., if you live somewhere gloriously sunny, which is not Melbourne at the moment, and you notice, the sun is starting to creep in, again, fragile time of the morning, is that sliver of light just enough to sneak into little peering eyeballs and say, hey, it's time to wake up. Remembering that light is one of the biggest things to signal to your baby's brain and our brains that it is time to wake up. So blackout blinds, put a sheet up, towels up, doonas up. Doesn't have to be pretty. We just want to make sure that it is still pitch black, to also just keep saying to melatonin, keep going, keep going. Don't run out yet.
Yeah. And the light can even be as important as double checking those little thermometers that you're using in the room. So if you're, something like a grow egg, where is that where is that located in your room? Because it can sometimes throw enough light in there to create that sort of the challenge of going back off to sleep. So if your little one is able to view that and see that the light is there, and night lights for all children 2 years and under, we are both on the train of no night lights inside
No
the
night
room.
lights, no glow dreamings turned on. No need for that. I even use a door snake in the hallway so that, like if I get up, let's be honest, I don't often get up at 5, but if I was to be that proactive, and there's a bathroom light or hallway light, that it doesn't then infiltrate.
Yep.
We want to keep that a cozy den.
Yeah, the idea is that we want even though the sleep pressure is waning, we want the melatonin pumping. And so, like you said, any sliver of light can impact the melatonin production and release. So we just want to make sure that it's as super dark as humanly possible.
Also, can you tell that we clearly work with so many babies with FOMO that a thermometer light is enough at 5 a.m. for the babies that we work with to say, oh, party time. Yeah. There's the disco light. I'm awake. Next is too noisy, too loud. So this is where, maybe baby's room is at the front of the house and it's the rubbish trucks starting, or the shift workers are leaving, or you are proactive and someone is getting up to go and walk the dogs or go to the gym, and it's just enough for a baby to hear that. So this is where a sound machine is ideal because it helps to buffer out those domestic and nature sounds.
So you definitely want to have this loud enough so it does buffer out the noise. So for a lot of families, they've got it on as a background, sort of like super gentle, just to sort of enough, like a beautiful little day spa sort of sound. But actually, in order for it to work and be useful, you do want to have it quite loud. So obviously not loud enough that it's ear bleeding. We do want it within a safe range, but just play around with where it's sitting as well. So having it close to the floor will be helpful. So it's a little bit more muffled, a little bit more thicker in intensity and volume. And that you are, volume wise, if I was going to put like a number on it, say 1 to 10, I'd probably have say 1 was, barely audible, 10 was booming. I would probably have the volume somewhere around the 7-ish mark if early rising was a bit of an issue. Just to, because of course it's so busy at that time in the morning, and we want to, there are birds chirping. One of the first checks, those birds that, this is so off topic. When I moved to Australia, I'd never heard birds like it. And then there's those birds that go, fuck off. In the morning, have you heard
Where
those?
did you move to?
Is that just a Sydney thing? I don't know.
Is that a bin chicken? I don't know. I have never heard an expletive bird.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going F off, like in the morning. But we lived on a golf course in Sydney. Yeah, and so maybe it's just golf course birds.
Maybe it's the golfers. Get off our golf course.
I used to wake up every morning and be like, oh my God, these birds. And so, yeah, you
just cussing you out at 5 a.m. How rude. Drown out those potty mouth pigeons. This is a great advertisement for Sound Machine. And welcome to Australia. We have huge spiders, snakes, and birds that will swear at you.
So yeah, anyway, so if you've got those types of birds living around your area, you want to drown them out.
No need to have that bad influence on young ears. At that hour, for many listeners will know, I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, so we're out of the baby phase, at least for now. And my children have said, I don't want the sound machine in their room, which is no problem at all. But what I do is I now pop it in the hallway, so their rooms face each other, and we actually have very creaky floorboards right between the two. And I go to the toilet every night. My husband does get up in the morning, and so I now blast it because it's not in their room, so I can do that on the bookshelf between their rooms so that it does muffle out that sound, and I just closed my door, so I can't really hear it. But it does. That's the next step. If an older child was like, I don't want this in my room anymore, no problem. Just pop it where it can still help to buffer out some of the sounds, including the birds. Those wretched birds.
Wretched. Oh my God.
I
So
very
funny.
rarely, just to go back to temperature, I don't think I've ever come across a baby that's too warm. Have you, in terms of waking up too hot? That's just me personally. Like, it hasn't come up. You'd want to rule that out too, that baby isn't just overdressed in general, but it's not something I personally have had to navigate with families.
I've had it once or twice where there's been some overbundling going on for sure, and then the heater kicks in. So a lot of families will
Oh,
put a
yep.
heater on at 4 o'clock. But I really am more of the camp of you kind of want to use the natural temperature of the room and then sort of layer up and use your tog rated bags before you even sort of think about
Put the
putting
heater
a
on.
heating on. Obviously I'm, mid North Coast, so we don't get super cold like you probably would do in like, Melbourne or Cooma or somewhere like that. So it's different for us, but yeah, I think that
Sorry, where
sometimes
was that
there is
second place you said? Melbourne and where?
Cooma, like near the snow, near near
I don't know
Thredbo.
what part
I
of
just
Australia you were in
I
with
know
these birds and this. You in Cooma.
Cooma. I
I
just
need
pulled
to
it
get
out
out
of thin
more.
air. It's a nice little
I
town
love
before you
it.
hit Jindabyne.
I'm getting a geography lesson. I need to whip out a map
Oh my
and
God,
a
well, when
bird
I moved from,
encyclopedia.
I couldn't like say any of the Australian like landmark names like for a long time because the Kiwi pronunciation or is totally different.
Well, just before you said boomin, and it definitely sounded like boobin. Which, for a baby sleep podcast, we talk about boobs all the time. Like, it's on brand.
That could be just because I sound like I've got a blocked nose all the time. My adenoids need to get those
yeah,
straight.
no, well, that's another red flag for sleep. So.
Well, you know what? Like I've got a tongue tie, so this is why I'm really big on tongue ties as well.
Yeah, that's
And
an
like,
episode
and
in the
like,
making, isn't it?
it absolutely is. And like, just on that, like the repercussions, like as an adult having a tongue tie, there's lots of them. We'll go into it
Oh,
in another episode, which is why I'm
can't
quite big
wait.
on getting those sorted out.
Okay, great. Wow, look at how
This
much
little
we've learned.
segue.
Forget early rising. I've learned so much else. Can
Okay.
you tell we have fun? Like, baby sleep just does not have to be as scary and toxic as it seems to be on social media. Anyway, let's now talk about genuine hunger, because that is a legitimate cause of not only early rising, but overnight wakes in general. And you and I always want us to set a family up so that they can confidently know that their baby is not waking from genuine hunger overnight, because we do not want to sleep train through hunger.
Yep. So
I
it's
wake when
more
I'm
of-
hungry.
Yeah, we do want genuine hunger sorted out for sure. And so for a lot of families, they keep feeds in overnight because they're unsure whether or not baby is waking from hunger or there's another reason or whatnot. But for families who are looking to do the early rise, do a little bit of sleep work on the early rise, it's really important that we rule genuine hunger out as a contributing factor for waking. And we do that by looking at the day and doing the hard work through the day in terms of optimizing feeds. We look at where solids are placed. We look at what types of foods are offered at certain times of the day. And I guess honestly, if you're unsure about whether or not your little one is genuinely hungry or not, reach out. It would be best to reach out to us and just double check, because we really super I don't know what the word is, Sally, but I just feel like this is one thing. Like, we want to always make sure that we're working with a little one who has an inability to self-settle, or it's a clockwork kind of clock-based type of issue rather than genuine hunger. Like, we won't try and sleep train through any of those.
No, definitely not. And I think there is such a push to have dropped all overnight feeds.
Yeah.
And often when I start with families, sometimes I'll even bring feeds back in
Yeah.
overnight to just sort of reset, to rule out. It's always worth looking at if you've got a dream feed in the mix and then thinking, oh, that should have done the heavy lifting, my favorite saying,
Yeah.
until 5 a.m., but my baby's still waking and then unsure. We would need to review the quality of the dream feed, the time, whether the dream feed is necessary, whether we can naturally go longer, then have a big full feed at, let's say, 3 a.m., which automatically will eradicate a 5 a.m. hunger waking. Has baby snacked all day, has baby snacked all night, and then is just ready to start their day with no sleep pressure and have a snack at 5 a.m. This sort of answer has to be very general in nature because each family is going to have something different. But I think particularly if you've got a 4 or 5 month old baby, there is no rush that baby has to be sleeping 12 hours overnight without a feed. Can some? Absolutely. But it does not have to be the norm, and you should not feel the pressure to do that. If anything, feeds are a great tool while we sort out everything else. And then what happens is babies sleep through that feed and we can naturally start nudging them out and go with a baby's flow. Equally, I work with some families. I finished up a few weeks ago with an amazing 2-week package with a 5-month-old with a bit of a history of poor weight gain early days. And just from a peace of mind perspective, this baby on multiple nights slept through until 6, but mum was still happy to do a feed for peace of mind after, a tricky start to life and weight, to keep a feed after 3 a.m. That's no problem. You can also factor in that sort of thing as well, but we never want to sleep train through genuine hunger. So I guess all that to say, you need to make sure that your day milk feeds, breast, bottle, does not matter, are substantial, are placed correctly, that we haven't got things like Beck's tongue tie that are holding feeds back, that if your baby is on solids, that they are in the right place. Do we need to add protein? We need to get a lay of the land, and then we need to have a look at overnight feeds, and you can absolutely keep them strategically. If not they're often needed.
So it is also very common for little ones to be able to sleep through the night, but then all of a sudden they start waking earlier and earlier. So what I'm talking about is the 3-4-month-olds that have a history of sleeping all through the night beautifully. The unicorn babies, they're just wonderful. But then they start waking earlier and earlier. And because they've had a history of sleeping through without a milk feed, parents are a little bit hesitant to put one back in. But like you said, Sally, we do need to rule out hunger being, and things change through the day. So it's not uncommon to put a feed back in, particularly when there are growth spurts, around that age. There's increased mobility around that age. There's, all different things happening. Naps are different through the day, so your feeds might be spaced a little bit differently, or, taking a turn through the day. It could be all sorts of things, and then it is required. A feed may actually genuinely be required overnight, which may just sort your early rising out organically.
Yeah. Yeah. And we love that. Again, if the more we can do leading up to any kind of sleep training technique, we may not ever end up needing it. And then easy, done. So, hunger tick. Make sure that your baby is not waking from hunger. Anything else to add on that?
Well, actually, there was one little thing that I wanted to just say when a feed is no longer working for you in terms of getting your little one back to sleep. So there's lots of times where we'll have a little one who is, maybe they're 7, 8 months old, and they're sleeping the majority of the night, and now it's 5 o'clock, and we were doing a really quick feed just to get them back off to sleep, and then they were sleeping closer to say 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. Hunky dory, it's all good. The 7 o'clock milk feed was protected and it's still really good. But then out of the blue, that little quick feed is no longer working, and then they're not actually going back off to sleep. And so that's a clear sign for the quick little feed that we use just to get you back to sleep, to get you a later wake, is actually not working. And so we would pull the feed at that time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good way of following what a baby's communicating, that this wasn't hunger. Equally, I saw a comment the other day that said, my baby wakes, every 3 hours and then at 5 a.m., but will only take 1 ounce and before drifting back off to sleep. And that is another way to know that is not genuine hunger. If they're only taking 1 ounce, that is just comfort sleep association.
Yeah, for sure.
So definitely review all of that. And as Beck said, reach out, because it is something that we don't want to just sleep train. And it is something that, as parents and probably primarily mothers listening to this, it's the thing that probably floats around in our head of, what if they are hungry? And so we want to be confident that they're not. I think that's pretty much it for today's episode, because next week we want to do, is the first nap of the day too early? Reinforcing your early rise, how the body clock and scheduling impacts it. And then what are we going to do about it? How do we sort this out from a behavioural technique point of view, which is the work. The work.
And we may also want to touch on next week, is my child a low sleep need child and they only need 10 or 10 and a half hours? I think that's probably worth noting in there. So if you feel like this could be in your wheelhouse with your little one, then you may want to tune in for that.
Otherwise, you've got your homework cut out for you. You are going to make sure that your baby's bedtime is not in the 5 or 6s, to ensure that it is an early rise versus they've just maxed out come 5 or 6 a.m. That you're going to remind yourself that Sally and Beck do not subscribe to babies and toddlers having to start their day at 5 a.m. purely because they are babies. And lots of things say that babies just start their day at 5 a.m. Not for us. Then you're going to rule out.
It is a no.
That's a no. Computer says no. Is your baby waking up because they're chilly? So having a look at all of the placement of the temperature monitor, thermometer. That's the right word. I need another coffee. The thermometer. Yeah. Are they by the window? Is it too drafty? What is the temperature at 3 a.m.? What is their TOG rating? All of that. And this is, if you are unsure, because it can feel a bit overwhelming with all the different advice, pop it in the comments with your room temp, what your baby's wearing, and we can respond and give a tweak if we think it needs it for this podcast. Just drop it in the comments. We want to make sure it's not too bright and it's not too loud. And then you need to have a look at hunger. And once you can confidently rule that out, then we move to clock-based scheduling issues and accidental parental reinforcement and how to fix it. That's the one I always get in trouble with on social media when I talk about you're causing your baby to rise.
Yes, I did love it. I did see on the TikTok. It was sort of, I love the word of like the term accidental, because no one actually wants to deliberately reinforce or make things worse. So
we are all picking our battles, and my goodness, is 4 and 5 a.m. a time where we just got to get through it. Like, we just got to get by. There is no judgment from us, and it truly is accidental if it does come down to some parental reinforcement. But we will go over that next week in a very shame-free way, I assure you, because we have all done it.
Absolutely. I'm excited to get into next week. So I think we should rock and roll. And if you've got any questions, make sure you leave a comment. Where are we leaving comments, Sally? On our social.
Good question. Social media, DMs. You can email us. You can drop it in the comments here. It's a good question. We're just the talent.
Yeah, we're not the tech people.
We're much better at baby sleep than we are. I think we just got to wrap this up, Beck. I'm off to look up these
I tried.
swearing the national animal of
I'm going to find them on the YouTube. Like I'm an 80-year-old. I'm going to find them on the YouTube and I'm going to send them to you, Sally. So
that can be the opening clip of next week's episode. No trailer, soundtrack. It's just going to be a cussing bird. And if you know, you know. We'll know that you've tuned into this one. All right, we're going to go. We will see you on the next episode of Nap Trapped as we continue to solve your baby's early rising. Bye.
Okay. Bye, team.